Hi, this is Unit 15, Poverty in Contemporary Britain by Ruth Triner. How is poverty defined? The nation of Britain can suffer in poverty, respectively in ways defined by an extreme examples such as absolute poverty to less intense such as relative poverty. Absolute poverty can be an example such as someone who has no shelter, no income, not able to meet basic needs, and possibly isolated from society. Relative poverty can be a household income is inefficient to the majority of households in the UK by 60% less of an income compared to the rest of the UK. Social exclusion poverty can be a family living in high crime area, secluded from society. They may have no social contact with others. They could have issues in receiving services such as health and social, unable to gain access to work due to inappropriate clothing or access to the internet, which affects possibility of getting out of poverty. Persistent poverty is described when a household suffers in poverty below the threshold 2 out of 3 years. Patterns or groups who live in poverty. In the UK, there are certain areas more affected by poverty. England has the highest rate of poverty by 31%. Wales is 28%, Scotland is 24%, Northern Ireland is 22% in poverty. In England, the West Midlands has the highest rate by 27% of households in poverty. Why is this? Certain areas of the country rely on the rental market, and certain areas of the cost of living is substantially higher. Also, social benefits can be lower in certain areas. The history of poverty. Poverty in Britain has been an issue for hundreds of years. During the 19th century, 25% of the nation living at or below the substantive level because of lower wages. During the 1900s, millions lived in dreadful conditions in built-up areas in slum houses because of cramped conditions, and disease was high. Social class system and its attitudes towards lower class had produced social and economic inequalities. The Industrial Revolution gave economic progress, but working conditions created child labour and mistreatment of the working class. The welfare system started with the Old Age Pension Act of 1908, and the social security system was founded in 1948. The social safety nets were introduced small scale and grew over time. Households in poverty in modern times. Which groups of households are found to suffer the most? Households with caring responsibilities. Families who have children, particularly families who have a child under 5, live in poverty due to the cost of childcare and resulting in the limitation of having a work life. 44% of lone parent families in poverty. 32% of children living in poverty in 2021 to 22. 4.6 million children living in poverty. 35% of children live in poverty with a lone parent. Households from minority backgrounds are more likely to live in poverty. People of Black African, Chinese, Pakistani or Bangladeshi descent have a higher rate of experiencing poverty. Groups to experience poverty. People who rent houses. Housing costs and the inability to afford extortionate rent or housing costs can push people into poverty. Social renters are suffering more than private renters. Families claiming income support benefits such as universal credit find universal credit at a basic rate to be under the destitutional levels. Part-time and the self-employed as well. The self-employed are 2 times more likely to suffer in poverty than of an employed person, and part-time workers also twice as likely to suffer in poverty than a full-time worker. Informal carers. People who have caring responsibilities such as social care responsibilities lose out on £5,000 a year. Supporting and caring for another person can also live in poverty. Female and child poverty. In modern times, women and children are still living in poverty. Women are at higher risk of living in persistent poverty than men, by 22%. Child poverty and female poverty go hand in hand because women are more likely to be caregivers of children. Older women are at risk of experiencing extensive poverty. Women are more likely to have a lower earning job than men because women tend to head a family household or experience changes in the family structure. 9 out of 10 single parents are women. The Four Court Society found 64% of the lowest paid workers to be women. Black and minority ethnic women are more likely to live in poverty than white women. These factors include having larger families, being a lone parent. Unemployment can be more likely due to family or cultural pressures. Children who are in a minority group are more likely to live in poverty. Children living in poverty are at higher risk of illness, feeling hungry or tired while at school, or suffering with poor mental health. How is poverty measured? Charles Booth and Seabohm Rowntree investigated poverty in London back in the 1800s. They wanted to understand causes and how they affect on the lives in poverty. The poverty line was constructed by Charles Booth during this time. This calculated what a household needed to meet dietary and expenditure requirements to live healthily. These methods were scientific to measure urban poverty in London, to battle the negative assumptions of poor people at the time. Modern measures. HBIA, or households 6% below average incomes. HBIA measure is regarded equivalized disposable income falling 60% of natural median. This means the size of the house, their disposable income, benefits received and their taxes. The Resolution Foundation think tank predicted an increase from 11.7 million in 2023 to 24 to 12 million people in 2024 to 2025 to live in poverty. A measure based on disposable income to understand low income can be measured by people in relative low income measuring income below 60% of the median in that year. People in absolute low income households income below 6% of median income on a base year. Relative low income is compared to the rest of the UK population. An absolute low income measure oversees the standards of distribution if improved over time. Poverty measures. Poverty can also be measured by the lack of belongings and services. Poverty levels can be higher if the income is measured after housing costs. Poorer households spend more on house-related costs. These methods are not totally watertight. They don't measure inequality or unfair distribution of resources. The government are planning to create a new measure of poverty in the UK from research of Social Metric Commission. What else is affecting the households? People of Britain have endured double inflation target levels. Benefit receipt has not competed with the rise of essentials. Disposable income in 2024-25 will be difficult to find. Since the pandemic, inflation has risen and the cost of food bills such as council tax and energy prices has been eye-watering. Since the 1970s, early 1980s, during the power of Maggie Thatcher, poverty is 50% higher in the modern day. In the last 20 years, poverty has not substantially fallen in the UK. This has been my presentation on poverty in Britain. Thank you for watching.